Hello, my name is Marina, and in this video, I'm going to explain you very briefly what is COIL and what are the essential elements that we can consider in a COIL module. First of all, COIL belongs to a very big number of opportunities that we have in the digital environment. Using the internet, we can have distance learning, we can organize MOOCs, online collaboration projects, but what makes COIL different is the intentional design. We want interaction to happen between the teachers and the students, and in this sense, COIL requires certain way to design it. So what's in an acronym? COIL refers to Collaborative Online International Learning. Collaborative because we need to work together. Teachers need to engage and collaborate to design the project, and then students need also to interact and exchange and be in touch with each other, with their international peers, to develop the task at hand. That is why it is also considered an experiential learning methodology. It is online because, of course, we need the internet to connect, and we need digital platforms to exchange the information, and therefore a COIL requires the use of virtual tools. But remember, COIL is not a technology per se. It's just a methodology that trains as well digital literacy. It is international because we're bringing two classrooms in two different countries together for a period of time. And in this sense, we can facilitate or promote that non-mobile students also have a chance to benefit from the, let's say, interesting competences that an international experience can bring. And learning, which is the last word, but maybe the most important, because as in any international experience, while we learn from our discipline, we also learn about how others see the world, and in this way also how we see the world. So it's also learning about how we consider these topics. Now, how does COIL work? This is a very clear graphic. We have a course A in one country, in one institution, and a course X, let's say, in another institution, in another country. These might have different languages, and they can even have different disciplines. So these two courses come together, and in the first phase, we have the professors collaborating to plan and design what their students will later work on collaboratively. So in the first phase, we see teachers collaborating and then students developing what their teachers designed. After this interaction has taken place, which is embedded at each course, the students are graded by their own teachers. So the credits are given in the course A by the teacher from course A, and then the grades are also given in course X by the teacher of course X. We will see this in detail. Can you perhaps think of the basic elements that this sort of collaboration should have? I'll give you 5 seconds to think about it. And some help. So as in any international or in any, let's say, teamwork collaboration, it's very good to have an icebreaker. This icebreaker is followed by an open plenary, and I will explain this in detail in the next slides. We then have the collaborative work, where the students actually implement the instructions and collaborate and work together with their peers. We might or might not have a monitoring session. That depends on the length of the project, or even on the institutional culture, or just the preference of the teachers that are implementing the COIL. Then it is suggested to have a final plenary to wrap up and show results and feedback after the collaboration takes place. Let's see those in detail. The icebreaker is an activity that serves to relieve inhibitions and also to lower ambiguity. We want people to connect. We want the students to work with each other. So that is why an icebreaker, I would say, is an essential part of any COIL activity. This can be synchronous in a plenary session, or can be asynchronous using a platform such as Padlet, where students upload a video or a picture or any kind of presentation. We have available examples for you in the virtual campus. The important thing of an icebreaker is, as in any step of a COIL project, please provide clear guidelines and the tools that the students have to use, and explain them in time so that the students know what to do and when. It is recommended that you include this in the assessment, so it's not a voluntary task. They have to present themselves, and they have to engage with their peers. And let's say a good practice that we have learned over the years is that you pay special attention to privacy. That means depending on the culture, depending on the faith, or even depending on the law, some data are not okay to be exchanged. So be aware of the data that you're asking for, and maybe even be aware of the reluctance of some countries or partners to upload a video of their own face. There are many examples that you can use, and it's very important to be respectful of these details. Now, another basic element of a COIL project is the plenary session. In this session that is hopefully or ideally synchronous, you present yourself as teachers, you explain what you want to do, and if you have any, you also explain the website or the platform or the channels that you're going to use to interact with the students, and how are they supposed to interact as well. You explain the intended learning outcomes, what is expected from this collaboration, and how are the students going to show that they have met these objectives. That is, what deliverables are we asking them to submit, and the rubrics that explain how to make them in the better way. And then also share calendar and methodology. So you might want to have all the synchronous sessions ready, all the dates that for submission fixed, and share that with the students. And of course, use that time for questions and comments and dubs, and make yourself reachable. So you will become the teacher of your own students and also your partner students for a period of time. Another basic element of a COIL activity is the collaborative task. We have done the icebreaker, they know each other, we have explained what we're going to do. Now it's time for students to really make their contribution, and it's a time where students work together. This, again, can be synchronous or asynchronous, depending on the design, depending on the country you're partnering with. For example, if the time zone is very different, then you will probably need to work asynchronously. If you're both based in the same continent or same time zone, it's going to be easier for them to meet. That depends a lot on you. Some recommendations for this element or for this part of COIL is that it lasts between 2 and 6 weeks. We say minimum 2 because it takes a little bit of time to adjust and to set up meetings and to work together. That is already very short. And 6 as maximum. Of course, you can adapt that, but if it gets longer than 6 weeks, then pay attention to the momentum. Pay attention to the energy that the student is giving to the COIL. They might get tired if it gets too long. So you want to make it short and concise and dynamic. Very relevant is that you publish clear rubrics and explain what is expected from students, and make them very accessible and public before the collaboration begins, so that they are informed and they know what to expect. And depending, again, on the type of activity, on the type of partnership, you might want to set up some monitoring sessions to follow up, to have some sort of feedback in the middle of the progress. So that depends a lot on the final, let's say, design of your COIL as well. And another remark on the collaborative task is that it should be win-win. That means that both groups have to have the feeling that they're learning through this experience. So this is something that we require instructors to think about before they share it with the students, and also to pay attention to collaboration. They need to somehow enrich each other, each classroom. Um, the best COIL projects is when both parts are necessary and codependent for the final result. This is an optional COIL element. So the monitoring session, as I have said before, depends on the length of the activity that you have scheduled or designed, on the complexity. You might have designed a collaborative that is a scaling. So you have a first step, and then you want to monitor there how they're doing, and then they can continue. That depends a lot on the project, on the length, as I was saying. Of course, as well, on the levels of autonomy that you expect from your students. And if you don't plan to do it for the whole group, you can also do the monitoring in your own classroom. So have this some minutes in every classroom to check how your students are doing with the COIL, if they are struggling with some part, or if they find some challenges. It's a good time to address that, and if it is relevant enough, maybe share it with the whole group. That is, as I said, not compulsory part, but it's good to have in mind that you can also design a checkpoint on or a monitoring session during the COIL. And the final, sorry, not end. Before I finish, we have the final plenary. This is a session, ideally also synchronous. That depends, of course, on your context, but it's a plenary that you will use to share results, listen to what your students have done, maybe also use it to share hard moments, and if the group is big, you can use it for peer assessment. That depends, again, on every particular context. But the important part of this one is that you capitalize the experience. Let me explain that. In any international interaction, or maybe in any human interaction, in any teamwork, there might be challenges and there might be problems that the students need to face. And if you, as instructor, stay there and listen to them and have the capacity to transform that challenge into a learning experience that is already a change in their own perspective. So they might say, for example, I'm going to use an example. They might say that communication was very hard because of language barriers or time zone difference. But then you acknowledge that even if they found those problems or those issues, they managed to present the deliverable or to submit on time. So they succeeded, even if they had some troubles. And so this challenge is turned then into a learning experience and something that they can be happy about. I don't know if you got the idea. And last point I wanted to highlight here in the final plenary is that you listen. It's very interesting that you listen and check how they did, and so empower their experience while sharing it with the group. And now the final element of a COIL project is the feedback. This can have many channels, and we want feedback from students, as I was just explaining in for the final plenary. So you can use the synchronous event to gather that information, or maybe you can use an asynchronous channel via sending out some questionnaires that you, of course, then have to read. It is interesting that you also have surveys for the academics, and you might want to ask for institutional support for that, or maybe just check with your peer how it went, have this session to wrap up and see how could you improve for the next time. And as well, spend some time or allocate some time to check on intercultural experience and learning. How was it to work with another institution, another language, another country, etc. And again, use this opportunity to capitalize this relevant experience, because even if it's online, it is an international collaboration, and it might mean a very impactful event for your students. And of course, as in any feedback, use it to improve. It is very nice when we see sustainable coils over the years. So if you have a good partner that you can collaborate with in a smooth way, and you do a first coil, maybe next time, after having this feedback, you improve your project, and the third time you start to enrich it, and it's very interesting for both instructors to have such a sustainable collaboration. If it's only one time, it's also good to have some feedback. So don't stress with this. And before I finish, I wanted to share with you some remarks. Here it is, with about the elements. Have in mind that every coil is different, and that depends on the personality of the teachers, on the subjects or disciplines, on the countries you're partnering with. So be able to adapt and design your coil in the way that better suits you. My only recommendation is that don't skip the icebreaker. Don't take collaboration for granted. It's good to allocate some time in there. Another recommendation is that you prepare in advance with enough time. Have time to discuss with your peer instructor in a very open and collaborative way. So I see this way, or this objective, agree and have enough time to create a trusted environment. And one last remark, be your student representative. That means no one better than you know your students, their capacities or their personalities, or what to expect from them. In the design phase, it's when you have the opportunity to really set up a coil that they will feel comfortable doing. And for example, if you design an icebreaker that is going to be shocking or stressful for your students, it's good that you mentioned that before you shared with the students. It might be obvious, but it's good that you remind that no one better than you knows your students and their capacities. And remember that a COIL project is a student-centered methodology, so it is for them to enjoy it. And of course, you. Thank you for your time. That was all for this part. I look forward to your comments. Bye.